Gift Page.
It's good to be with all of you today, and it's fun to excuse me. It's fun to have you all here and get a chance to kind of share a little bit about what my life has been like. And
I'm going to rearrange you here.
okay, don't rearrange me too much, but I do.
How's that? Is that okay?
Okay, can
Yeah,
everybody
that's
hear me?
Yeah.
I do want to mention that I will be selling my books at the Holiday Bazaar on November 15th. So somebody already asked me, was I selling my books here? No, I'm not selling them here, but I will have them at great discounts at the bazaar. So please come to the bazaar. First, I'd like to share a little bit about who I am. My name is Carole Gift Page. You know me as Carole Page. But people sometimes think I made up my name. They think, well, did you make up the gift? Well, I wouldn't do that, It's not a pen name. I was actually born Carole Gift. And so that's my maiden name. And Carole Gift, and I married Bill Page. So I want you to know it took me a long time to find a husband with the right last name, the right Bill Page. I gotta keep him. He's got the right last name. It's gonna look great on the cover of a book. Gift, I must tell you, actually, in German, does not sound as good as it does in English. In German, it means poison. Did you know that? Any of you who know German might know that. Anyway, I have quite a few of my books that have been published in German. And so one day I was doing a Google search to find out what my German publishers were saying about me. Well, I found one of my German publishers, but everything was in German, and I don't speak German. But in the corner it said, click here for an English translation. So I thought, great, I will know what they're saying about me. I did that. Everywhere where my name was listed, it said, Carole Poison Page. So anyway, it's better in English, yes. It is really a brave new world we live in, isn't it? Talking about the internet and searching for things on the internet. I'm still trying to understand the internet. I am now trying to understand iCloud. Some of you may be struggling with that too. I pay $2.99 a month to have my work stored on iCloud, and I sure don't know where the heck that is. I mean, I have no idea where that is.
It's up in the cloud.
It's somewhere, yes, it's somewhere in the cloud, but I have no idea where. When I first got on the internet years ago, I mean, I used to have to write everything. I would send letters out. I'd have to compose actual letters on the typewriter in those old days. And when we got a computer, then when we got on the internet, I thought, boy, my life has changed. I don't have to write all these letters to my publishers and my editors and people that I was trying to get speaking engagements with, pastors and various other people, and professors and whoever else. And so I discovered sending emails. And I thought, this is wonderful. This is just a lifesaver. And it took me a while to realize that I was actually sending all my emails in my teenage daughter's screen name. Cutie Pie, too blonde for you. That was Heather's, my younger daughter Heather's, not my older daughter Kim's, that was Heather's. So I had to learn to send a few explanations out on that. I've had a love for writing and drawing for as long as I can remember. From the time I was a little girl, I loved to draw and I loved to write stories. And I can remember in school, every week they'd give you a list of spelling words when I was in grade school. You all remember those days? And I had great fun in taking those words and I would write a story using all the words and then I would illustrate it. And I had great fun doing that. And as a child, my grandmother once packaged up a bunch of my drawings and sent them out to Walt Disney. Now, I must tell you that my dream growing up was to be a cartoonist for Walt Disney. I mean, that was the highest dream I could imagine, drawing cartoons for Walt Disney. Well, my grandmother sent out my work, and I did get a letter back from somebody. I don't know, it wasn't Disney, it was somebody there at the studios. And they said something like, oh, good work, keep on keeping on, that sort of thing. Well, when it was time for college, they didn't have a major in fiction or novel writing at that time. And so I turned to my other love, which was art, and I majored in art education. And so many of the works that you see here today are from my one-woman art show that was required for graduation. Early on in my career, basically after college, I worked for a time for a man who created professional ventriloquist figures. And he would do them and then sell them to the various ventriloquists around. And so he hired me to create heads for these ventriloquist figures. So I would go to his house, he would give me a big mound of clay, and I would sculpt a head from that clay. And then he would make a mold, and then from there he would make the heads for these ventriloquist figures. Now, I don't have anything to show you except over there where there's an album jacket, that album jacket on the second display there. That album jacket is my sister's. My sister, through most of her life, has been a singer and a ventriloquist and traveled all over the country performing. So the dummy that you see in the Christmas picture up in the corner is one of the heads that I sculpted. So that's Sam. So I always felt a little like that was one of my children. You know, I sculpted his head. So anyway, it's been a fun life. For many years after I got out of college, I tried to combine both writing and drawing. I did that for a while. Some of the drawings, if you look at, let's see, where are they? Somewhere around here, you'll see some small articles that I did, and I illustrated this. I'd write the story, I'd illustrate it with a drawing, I'd send it out to a publisher freelance, and some of those I sold, but what I often found was that they would buy the story and they'd send me back the drawing explaining that they had their own staff of artists. So then I had a drawing, what do I do with it? So eventually I got to the place where I knew I had to choose between art and writing. And as you can probably tell by my books back here, that writing won out. But I must say, my life has been a strange series of paradoxes. Now, you all know what a paradox is, right? Mm-hmm. That old sick joke. What's a paradox? Two doctors. Well, no, a paradox are true seeming truths that seem opposite. And so my life has been a strange series of paradoxes. When I was 3 years old, I was living with my grandparents in Indiana, and I was bitten by a mosquito carrying encephalitis. And I don't remember anything about that day, of course, but my mother said that I got violently ill, and they took me to the local hospital, and they said, there's nothing we can do for her. You've got to take her to the Children's Hospital in Indianapolis, which was several hours away. So they drove me to Indianapolis. I was in the midst of convulsions and I don't know what all at the time. And for the next 10 days, I was in a coma. And I was sick with sleeping sickness. Some of you may have seen the film Awakenings some years ago. And that's exactly what I had, sleeping sickness. And so I was in a coma for 10 days. And the doctor said to my mother, she probably won't survive. And it's really better if she doesn't, because she will likely be just a vegetable. Well, my mother prayed and promised God my life if he would heal me. And he did. Here I am. As far as I can tell, I only have one major disability. I have absolutely no sense of direction. Some of you are laughing because you haven't had sleeping sickness and you still have no sense of direction. I understand that. Well, I literally have no ability to visualize where I have been or where I am going. I cannot picture it. I cannot visualize in my mind how to drive out of this place and drive to some particular location. It's just not there. Thankfully, I have a husband who drives, because I don't know where we would end up. And if you see me wandering the halls sometime and I look a little lost, just point me in the right direction, okay? I'm sure I'll get there then. But the paradox is that even though the doctors said I would likely be nothing but a vegetable, today I've authored 48 books, fiction and nonfiction, for the inspirational market. And you can take a look at the books later. And some of them are in Spanish and German and Polish. There are English versions that were published in Australia, England, Nigeria, and the Philippines. Also in 1997, Harlequin Books, how many of you are familiar with Harlequin Books? They do the steamy romances, right? Well, I don't do those. Romance novels, yes, but not overly steamy. Anyway, they contacted me and asked if I would help them launch a line of inspirational novels for the Christian market. But when they first asked if I would help them launch a new line, I said, well, I hate to tell you this, but I haven't even read your books. And they said, no, that's fine. We want you to write exactly what you're already writing, only we want you to do it for us. So I did 7 romance novels for Harlequin for their love-inspired line, which is still one of their best-selling lines today. I also had the opportunity of teaching creative writing for several years at Biola University in La Mirada, California. Another paradox. When I was growing up, I was painfully shy. Now, some of you who know me, you may know that I'm kind of shy. I'm more the homebody. My husband is the happy wanderer. You see him wandering the halls very often, and I'm usually at home, whatever, so he's the happy wanderer. Anyway, when I was growing up, I was painfully shy, and part of the reason was that I had the worst set of buck teeth that my orthodontist had ever seen. He used to take molds before and after of my teeth to conventions to show off his handiwork. So I was very much afraid of people, and I wanted to be invisible, and yet I desired to share my heart with other people. There were just so many things going on inside me that I wanted to share, and yet I was petrified. 2 things happened when I was a teenager. First of all, I discovered that God loved me just as I was. And I felt beautiful to Him. For the first time in my life, I felt beautiful to somebody. And the second thing is that I discovered writing. Now, I had been writing little stories since I was in grade school, but now I wanted to write stories that made a difference, stories that would speak to people's hearts, and stories where I could just pour out my heart and all the things that I was feeling. And I thought this was the answer to my life, because I started writing stories. I'd share them I'd say, here, do you want to read my story? I'd give my story to somebody, and they'd take it and read it, and I never had to face them. And I thought, God has given me the answer to my life. I can sit at home in my little attic garret, and I can write to my heart's content, and I never have to face another human being. I thought that was the answer. The paradox is that writing opened the door to public speaking. God gave this very timid girl, who was afraid to communicate, the chance to share my voice with thousands of people through my speaking and writing. And this is the message that someone just asked me today, what message are you trying to communicate in your books? And this is the message, generally speaking, that underlies most of my books. God loves us with a vast, incomprehensible love, and He desires our love in return. He also wants to turn our weaknesses